That Friday afternoon, I was wrapping up my last strategy session at a consulting firm in downtown Seattle when my phone rang. The number wasn't saved, but it was flagged as a financial institution. Curious, I answered. Good afternoon, this is Daniel Reeves from Evergreen Federal. I'm calling to confirm some details regarding a mortgage loan for a property on 1452 Auburn Ridge Lane. I blinked. Auburn Ridge? I didn't own anything there. You must have the wrong person, I said calmly. I don't have any loans connected to that address. I understand, Daniel replied, his tone dipping with discomfort. But your name, Chloe Jensen, is listed as the co-signer. The primary applicant is a Kelsey Jensen, your sister. My breath caught. The pen I was holding slipped from my fingers. That can't be right. All the forms have your signature. The loan was approved 8 months ago. Your parents submitted the paperwork in person. A chill ran through me. I thought of Thanksgiving. The way Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. The hush in the room when Kelsey bragged about her new place. The routine forms I'd signed at Dad's birthday, supposedly for updated medical coverage. I need those documents emailed to me now, I said firmly. I'll send them within 5 minutes, Daniel assured me, but the account is delinquent, overdue by 10 weeks, outstanding balance $17,800. 0 cents. I felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. After the call, I immediately phoned Ryan, my best friend since grad school, and thankfully a real estate attorney. He didn't hesitate. They forged my name, I told him the moment he picked up. Kelsey, my parents, all of them. I'm on my way, he said. By the time Ryan arrived, the email was in. We opened the PDF, and there it was. My name signed with the same distinctive curl in the C that my mother always added when forging my signature on school notes. My suspicion was now undeniable rage. Ryan tapped the screen. They didn't even try to make it convincing. This is felony-level fraud. I nodded, though my hands were trembling. Just then, my phone lit up. Mom. I handed it to Ryan, but he shook his head. Answer it. Try to stay calm. I inhaled sharply and pressed accept. Hi, Mom. Hi, honey, are you free tonight? Your dad's making his famous lasagna, she said, cheerful, too cheerful. I almost laughed at the timing. That's great. Actually, I wanted to talk to you too. I got a really fascinating call today from Evergreen Federal. Silence. Then her voice dropped. I was going to tell you, Chloe, I swear. It was just, Kelsey needed help, and you're doing so well, we thought. So your solution was identity theft. My voice rose before I could stop it. Do you have any idea what this could do to my job? My bar license? You're overreacting, Chloe. We're family. Families help each other. Help? I scoffed. Or just help Kelsey, like always? You signed me up for nearly $18,000, 0 cents in debt, and didn't even tell me. She's going to pay it back. She just needs time. I stared at the 3 missed payments blinking on my screen. I'm coming over tonight. Make sure Kelsey's there. I ended the call, my whole body shaking. Ryan shut the laptop gently. Do you want to press charges? I don't know, I whispered, but I need the truth, all of it. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Then we start tonight. Something shifted in me, not grief, resolved. They used my name as a financial shield. Fine, but now they'd face someone who knew how to fight back. Ryan returned that night at 8 p.m., holding his laptop, a folder, and 2 sandwiches. He looked more serious than I'd ever seen. You need to eat something before you pass out, he said, pulling up a chair. I started digging. This isn't just the mortgage, Chloe. What do you mean? He turned the screen toward me. 3 credit cards, all in your name, all opened in the last 6 months. Combined credit limit? $70,000. And they're maxed out. I sank into the chair. No, I only have 1 card, my Amex, from 2019. That's not all, Ryan continued. There's a $50,000 0-cent personal loan from a finance company in Des Moines, taken out 4 months ago. And worse? An investment account under your name was used as collateral for a business loan. I jumped up. I don't even have an investment account. You didn't need to, he said. They just needed fake paperwork and a forged signature, which they've clearly perfected. I began pacing, heart pounding. 7 months. For 7 months, I've lived my life thinking I was financially safe, and all this time, they were using you, he finished. Your credit score has tanked. I looked up. When was the last time you checked it? 6 months ago. It was 812? Ryan shook his head. It's 613 now. I slumped down. My firm? Ryan, if this leaks, I'm done. Even being the account holder is enough to raise red flags. That's why we act now, he said firmly. I've contacted Nora. She's a fraud analyst at my office. She's agreed to help, but we need every document. How much damage are we talking about? He hesitated. So far, about $292,000. 0 cents. Could be more. It felt like I'd been punched. Almost $300,000. Not from my mistakes, but from the people who claimed to love me. My phone rang again. It was Kelsey. I didn't answer. We'll take it step by step, Ryan said, opening a folder. First, freeze your credit reports. Then we file identity theft affidavits and notify each financial institution. I nodded slowly. My name, my signature, my life. They thought I wouldn't fight. They forgot I'm a lawyer. If I'm the target, who knows what else they've done? Ryan nodded gravely. I'll coordinate with Nora, but I think we should bring in an independent legal analyst. Someone to audit every transaction linked to your accounts. A thought hit me like a lightning bolt. Wait, Mom borrowed my laptop twice last month. Said she needed to check an old email. Ryan looked up. And? Kelsey was at my office on my birthday. She stayed late, said she wanted to help me organize files. She could have accessed my financial dashboard. Ryan opened his laptop and pulled up my remote login history. A few clicks later, he turned the screen toward me. There it is. An unauthorized login from your mom's IP address, 20 minutes after Kelsey left your office. I stared at the timestamp, my throat went dry. They didn't just take advantage of me, they orchestrated it. What do you want to do next? Ryan asked. I looked him in the eye. The decision was made. Tomorrow night, I confront them, not as their daughter, not as Kelsey's sister, but as someone who knows everything and won't be quiet. The next evening, I walked into the house where I'd grown up in Bellevue. Everything looked the same, familiar, but foreign. The outdated floral couch, the faded photo of our family at Mount Rainier, and the smell of Mom's roast chicken, the one she always made when she was hiding something. Kelsey sat at the table, red-eyed. My dad stood silently at the stove. My mom looked up and forced a smile. Chloe, you made it, she said, like it was just a casual visit. I didn't answer. I placed a thick folder on the dining table. Let's skip the pretending. These are copies of every fraudulent account, loan, and investment opened under my name, verified by a legal investigator. Mom's eyes flicked toward the papers but didn't linger. Kelsey burst into tears. You don't understand, she choked out. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just needed help with the down payment and then things spiraled. Spiraled, I said, voice cold. You took out a $180,000 0 cents loan using my credit. You opened credit cards in my name. You pledged my investment account for your business loan. Dad finally turned around. She just needed a break, Chloe. You've got everything, why can't you give her a little? I stared at him in disbelief. So, stealing my identity is a form of support now? Mom stepped forward. We thought you'd understand. You're so successful. We didn't want to burden you with all the details. Forgiveness isn't on the table tonight, I said quietly. Kelsey clutched my arm. I'll pay it back, I promise. I pulled up a photo on my phone and showed her. You spent over $9,000 0 cents at a spa last month and $3.50 on handbags. How do you plan to pay that back when you don't even have a stable income? Silence, just the ticking of the kitchen clock. I don't know, Kelsey finally whispered. Exactly, I said. And if you all think family means using someone's life and reputation like a credit card, then maybe we're not speaking the same language anymore. Mom broke down into sobs. Please, Chloe. If you report this, Kelsey will lose her house. I looked at my sister, her eyes full of panic. Then I looked at my parents, the people who raised me to believe in honesty, now standing here hoping I'd stay silent? I've already spoken with my attorney, I said firmly. Tomorrow, I'm filing an identity fraud complaint with the State Financial Crimes Unit. Dad's jaw tightened. You're taking your own family to court? I'm not taking anyone, I said, steady. You put yourselves there when you used me without consent. Kelsey whispered, You can't do this, I'm your sister. I met her gaze. You were. But you're also the person who sabotaged the life I spent a decade building. She said nothing. Mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing. My father stared at the ground. Kelsey stood frozen, guilt etched into every line of her face. I walked to the door, then turned around. This isn't revenge. This is justice. Because if I stay quiet now, there will be a next time. And I've got nothing left to give. I opened the door and walked out, leaving the silence behind me. The betrayal and the same tired excuse. We're family. But for the first time in my life, I saw it clearly. Family is not a license to destroy someone and call it love. 3 days after I confronted my parents and Kelsey, I sat in the sleek corner office of Solstice James, a senior financial analyst who consulted with our law firm. Ryan had made the introduction, and within 5 minutes I understood why. Solstice didn't speak much, just typed steadily, her eyes flicking across my documents like she was decoding an ancient riddle. I sat beside her, heart racing, cold sweat sticking my blouse to the chair. Chloe, she finally said, almost 2 hours in, we have a much bigger problem than you realize. My stomach dropped. How big? She turned her monitor toward me. Big enough to involve the FBI. I stared at the screen. Dozens of flagged transactions were highlighted. Your investment account has been used as collateral for a fund called Riverpine Growth Fund. Ever heard of it? I shook my head. No. Exactly. It doesn't exist. But several members of the Red Maple Golf Club, where your parents are regulars, have been funneling money into it for months. She pulled up a spreadsheet that made my eyes spin. I traced $5,200,000 0 cents, through at least 4 intermediary accounts, 2 in the U.S., 1 in Belize, and 1 anonymous holding in Luxembourg. I pushed back from the desk. Oh my God. It gets worse, Solstice continued, calm and unshaken. They didn't just use your money. They used your name, your photo. They created fake emails showing you as the fund manager. She nodded. The address was nearly identical to yours, --c.jensen.consult@gmail.com. They used a spoofed e-signature based on your real contract templates. I suspect a keylogger was installed on a shared device, possibly your home laptop or office computer. I covered my face with both hands, my pulse thundering. So, they didn't just scam me. They used me to scam others? Exactly, Solstice said. People believed they were investing in a secure fund run by a respected corporate attorney. They trusted your public image. Just then Ryan walked in, coffee in one hand and his jaw tight. I just got a call, Chloe. Your dad and another man tried withdrawing $200,000, 0 cents, from a flagged joint account. The bank froze the transaction in time. Good, Solstice replied. We need to block every possible leak. If they move those funds offshore, they'll vanish. I shook my head. What about the victims? Has anyone come forward? Solstice exhaled. Not yet. They're mostly older. Some are close friends of your parents, others old classmates of your mom. That hit harder than I expected. The people who trusted my family most, they were the ones paying the price. There's someone you should meet, Solstice said. She stepped out and returned moments later with a familiar figure, Mrs. Helen Ward, my old high school English teacher and my mother's close friend. Hello, Chloe, she said gently. I stood up. Mrs. Ward, I'm so sorry. She shook her head, her voice wavering. I believed in your family, in you. I thought you were running the fund. They showed me emails, figures, your name. I trusted them. I trusted you. I had no idea, I said, my voice cracking. But I swear, I'm going to make this right. Ryan nodded. We've assembled the full case file. We're submitting it to the Federal Financial Crimes Task Force tomorrow. Solstice added, we've compiled a complete list of victims. Once the investigation begins, each person will be notified and offered legal support. I looked toward the whiteboard beside her desk. Names, amounts, bank references, transaction dates. It looked like a spiderweb of fraud, and I was the center of it. How much time do we have? I asked. Not much, Ryan said. They're panicking. If we wait, the money could disappear into layered accounts beyond U.S. jurisdiction. I clenched my jaw. Then we act now. That morning, we walked into Hallridge Bank headquarters with our compiled file, hundreds of pages of forged emails, manipulated investment reports, server logs, and proof of identity fraud. Frank Delaney, the branch manager, stood up as we entered. His expression was a mix of confusion and tension. Chloe, I just met with your parents this morning. They said, you're trying to ruin their reputation, threatening them with a lawsuit? I calmly placed the thick file on his desk. Then I suggest you take a good look at what I brought. Frank sat down and opened the binder. As he flipped page after page, the composure drained from his face. Solstice pointed to one chart. That's the Riverpine Money Trail. It's a fake fund. The transactions connect directly to flagged offshore accounts, Belize and Luxembourg. Frank's eyes widened. Oh my God! I leaned forward. You've known my family for years. But this isn't about relationships anymore. It's about the truth. And I'm done being used. Frank didn't say another word. He just kept reading, his silence louder than any apology I never received. All mortgage applications, credit card openings, and investment activity originated from a single location, your parents' home, Solstice said, her tone grim. We also pulled device logs. The system linked everything to one personal laptop. The same model Kelsey brought into your office on your birthday. Ryan nodded tightly. It's the same device that accessed your email archives remotely. This wasn't an accident. It was premeditated. Frank Delaney, the bank manager, closed the folder, now visibly tense. We'll escalate this to our internal legal team immediately. I'll also initiate a full account freeze on all connected profiles. We've already submitted our report to the King County Financial Crimes Division and the Pacific Northwest Bureau of Investigation, Ryan added. They're dispatching agents today. Less than an hour later, 2 plainclothes officers entered the bank, Detective Elise Hope and Deputy Inspector Marco Morales. Ms. Jensen? Elise greeted me with a nod. Thank you for your cooperation. The evidence is strong. It's time to bring in the involved parties. I waited in a back conference room while Frank called my parents and Kelsey, inviting them to return to the bank to clarify some paperwork regarding the mortgage. They all agreed immediately, probably thinking they could bluff their way through one last time. When they walked in, my mother smiled like we were meeting for brunch. Frank, it's so nice you called. We figured we'd come clear things up with Chloe before things got blown out of proportion. My dad nodded curtly, avoiding eye contact. Kelsey couldn't even look up. Exactly, I said, sliding a thick folder across the table. Let's clear things up. That's evidence of identity theft, wire fraud, and the operation of an unlicensed investment scheme. The room fell into silence. Kelsey's hands trembled. My mother flipped through the file with panicked speed. My father's face flushed crimson, his jaw clenched like it might snap. Hello, he growled. What do you think you're doing? I'm stopping the 3 of you from continuing to ruin my life and the lives of at least 14 other people. You called it helping family, I call it what it is. Organized crime. My mother slammed her hand down. You'd put your family in jail over this? Over a few missteps? Kelsey is your sister. No, I replied, locking eyes with her. She's a participant in a financial crime ring. I'm pressing charges regardless of the last name. That's when the 2 officers stepped forward. Gordon Jensen, Mary Ann Jensen, Kelsey Jensen, Morales announced. You are under arrest on charges of aggravated fraud, identity theft, and operating an illegal financial fund under false credentials. My mother recoiled. This is a mistake. She's the one making this up. Kelsey burst into tears. I didn't know about the offshore accounts. I just helped them talk to friends. I didn't mean. My father stood up, but Elise moved in. Sir, I strongly suggest you remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in federal court. As they were let out, my mother glared at me, eyes full of disbelief and rage. "You'll regret this, Chloe. Family doesn't do this." And respond. I just watched as the glass doors closed behind them. Ryan stepped beside me. "You okay?" "Not yet," I whispered, "but I'm finally on the right path." Later that evening, I checked my phone. Messages had started to pour in from people I hadn't heard from in years. Most were from victims, thanking me for standing up when no one else could. A week later, the trial began in Federal Courtroom 6 in downtown Seattle. I sat in the front row beside Ryan and Solstice, gripping my prepared statement as the court filled with legal teams, media, and victims. Across the aisle, my father sat in a dated gray suit, his shoulders hunched. My mother looked pale, occasionally glancing at me with tearful eyes. Kelsey looked like a ghost. Skin dull, hands shaking, lips chewed raw. Judge Ramirez opened proceedings with a stern tone. The defense relied on overused excuses, pressure, confusion, poor judgment, family miscommunication. But when prosecutor Lee Whitaker stood, the tone shifted. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was premeditated. The defendants used their daughter's identity and credibility to orchestrate a sophisticated fraud ring, targeting older investors and family friends. I was called to the stand after opening statements. Each step I took felt like lifting weights, but when I saw Mrs. Ward and several other victims sitting behind the prosecution bench, I knew I had to speak. "My name is Chloe Jensen," I began. "I'm a corporate attorney with Lockridge Consulting Group. Over the past year, my identity was used, without my knowledge, to open lines of credit, approve fraudulent investments, and construct a fictitious fund that stole from friends, retirees, and members of our community. I showed email records, IP logs, bank statements, photos of forged e-signatures, and finally, evidence of how my own family had preyed on the trust people placed in me." "I wasn't just betrayed," I said, looking directly at Kelsey. "I was used as a weapon to legitimize their crime, and I won't stay silent so they can do it again." The courtroom remained silent, but the message was loud and clear. Photos flashed across the projection screen. Red Maple Marina, South Florida. Each timestamp matching large withdrawals from victims' accounts. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Mrs. Ward took the stand, her voice steady. "I only invested because I believed Chloe was managing the fund." Kelsey's attorney tried to separate her from the case, claiming she simply followed her parents' instructions. But that collapsed when Prosecutor Whitaker presented a job application Kelsey submitted, using my resume, my law degree, and even my bar license number, complete with a forged e-signature. The courtroom went silent. Judge Ramirez flipped through the case file for nearly an hour before he looked up. Based on the evidence, testimony, and charges submitted by the federal prosecutor's office, the court hereby sentences. You could hear a pen click at the clerk's desk. Gordon Jensen, 18 years in federal prison, no parole for the first 10. Marianne Jensen, 15 years in federal prison. Kelsey Jensen, 12 years in federal prison and permanent disqualification from all financial representation or fiduciary roles. Kelsey collapsed into tears. My mother went pale. My father stared ahead, vacant. All assets tied to the case, homes, vehicles, jewelry, and accounts will be seized for restitution, the judge added. Funds in international holdings will be recovered, with FBI cooperation. Mrs. Ward took my hand. "You did the right thing." I nodded, but inside I ached. Doing the right thing had meant losing my family. As they were led away, Kelsey looked back. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know it'd go this far." But she had. They all had. And they kept going. The trial was over, but the healing had only just begun. A week later, I returned to Lockridge Consulting Group. Not as the obedient daughter, but as someone who had survived financial betrayal, by blood. 2 days after sentencing, the board emailed me an invitation to lead a new initiative called Reclaim and Rise, a support program for victims of family financial fraud. "No one is more qualified," the CEO wrote, "not just because of your skill, but because you've lived it." I stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to shut the door, but a braver part knew this was a beginning. I said yes. In our first week, I barely slept. Ryan, Solstice, and I built the foundation, launched a hotline, a website, a volunteer legal team. Within 10 days, over 300 people reached out. Most were elderly, women, or people blindsided by someone they trusted. One of the first calls that stayed with me came from Marlene, 67. I gave my retirement to help my son start a business, she said. Now he's gone, the money's gone, I feel stupid. No one's stupid for loving someone, I told her gently, but rising after betrayal? That's strength. Later that month, I went to clean out my parents' old apartment. The rest had been seized, but I was allowed to retrieve personal items. The house felt like a mausoleum. The same ticking clock, the same fake smiles and framed photos. In Kelsey's drawer, I found a worn leather notebook. First line, in her handwriting. River Pine Plan. Don't let Chloe find out. I closed it and breathed. Not in anger, but to let go. That night, I held our first support group meeting. I had a speech prepared, but seeing the faces in that room, I folded the paper. I'm not here to teach you how to heal, I began. I'm here because I once sat where you are, betrayed, ashamed, unsure of how to move forward. A young woman stood, tears streaming. Thank you, she whispered. You said what I never dared admit. Afterward, I received letters, drawings, even small tokens, not out of pity, but because they no longer felt alone. I had no parents anymore, no sister, not in the true sense of the word. But I'd found something deeper, a new kind of family. One that didn't demand silence, only honesty. One quiet afternoon, Solstice joined me on a park bench, with coffee in hand. She passed me a cup and smiled gently. Chloe, she asked, do you think you'll ever forgive them? I thought for a moment, then smiled. I don't know if forgiveness even matters anymore, but I know this. I've forgiven myself, for staying silent, for enduring it, for believing that if I were just good enough, they wouldn't do what they did. Solstice nodded, her expression soft. And now? I looked out toward the Seattle skyline, where so many lives were quietly being rebuilt. Now, I use my voice to protect the ones who never had a chance. That's how I begin again. That's how I choose to go on. That evening, I stood alone in the small auditorium where Reclaim and Rise had just held its first national conference. The room was empty now, chairs stacked neatly. Warm golden light glowed across the stage where, just hours earlier, I had shared my story with hundreds of others. People who had also been betrayed by blood. In the corner was a table covered in handwritten notes, messages left behind by attendees. One caught my eye. I used to think I was weak for not being able to forgive, but thanks to you, I see now, sometimes the strongest thing we can do is cut off what's toxic. I held the note gently, tracing the shaky letters with my fingers. For years I believed love meant enduring, that preserving the image of family was sacred, but now I understood. Real strength doesn't come from silence. It comes from speaking up, from protecting ourselves and others from a cycle of deception dressed up as love. I used to be the daughter who tried to earn affection, thinking, if I worked harder, achieved more, stayed loyal, they would finally love me. But love isn't earned. It's given freely, with presence, respect, and care. And if it doesn't come with those things, it's not love. It's control. I remembered the day I testified in court, facing the three people I once believed were my anchors. The pain in that room wasn't just grief. It was transformation. A line drawn. Never again would I let someone go through that kind of betrayal alone. Since that day, I'd met hundreds of people. A single mother whose brother took out a loan in her name, then vanished. An elderly man whose daughter used his name to lease a car. A student crushed by debt because his parents used his identity to pay for someone else's tuition. Different names, same wound. The betrayal of someone you loved without question. I began to realize sometimes you have to redefine what family means. Family isn't blood. It's not about genetics or shared homes. Family is where you feel safe from harm, where trust is honored, where you don't have to shrink yourself to be accepted. I looked up at the conference banner behind the stage. Justice begins with truth. Ryan stepped in from the side door holding 2 cups of tea. He handed me one and took a seat beside me. "You did great today," he said. "Not just for what you said, but for how you made people feel seen." I smiled. I just don't want anyone to feel broken for choosing to walk away from family that hurts them. Ryan hesitated for a beat. "Do you ever think about forgiving them?" I looked out the window where the sun had dipped behind the trees. "I don't carry hatred," I said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean they get to come back. Forgiveness is for my peace, not their redemption." Ryan nodded. "Yeah, I get that." I turned to him, my voice firm. "I'm not chasing love from people who saw me as a resource. I'm building a new family now. One built on truth, on listening, on presence." I looked around the room, at the echo of voices still lingering in the air. People like you, Solstice, the survivors who stood up today and reclaimed their voice. I raised my cup. To truth, to courage, and to a new definition of family. Ryan clinked his cup against mine. To the new beginnings we choose. And as the city lights flickered outside, I knew my life wasn't tied to the people who hurt me anymore. I had lost a family, but I found myself. And with that, I began to rewrite what family truly meant. With my own hands. If my story resonated with you, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, or felt alone for choosing to walk away from toxic family ties, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Tell me what part of my journey spoke to your heart. Your voice matters. And if you're still in the middle of your own story, know this. You are not weak for protecting your peace. You are not wrong for demanding better. Speak your truth, even if it shakes. That's where healing begins. Let's remind each other. We don't have to carry pain in silence anymore.